They continued up a slight grade until the road leveled out again, looking for the landmark that had been told to watch for. Suddenly he saw it, Christ Church, sitting serenely on the crest of a small hill, its dark red brick warmed by the winter sun, its white bell tower proudly outlined against a cloudless sky, lovely in its simplicity. Just beyond the church he forded a small creek and turned up the short lane lined with ancient buttonwoods leading to Jacob Sell's farm and sawmill. Here and there a stand of dark hemlock showed black, etched against the pale sky, and beyond the stone boundary walls corn stubble poked through the melting snow. "From the front porch you can see Christ Church," he said, squeezing her hand. "Look at that pond behind the house, like a mirror reflecting the trees and the house." After examining the roomy farm kitchen with its large open fireplace, they toured the dining room and double living room before climbing a central stairway to the 5 second-floor bedrooms. They picked their way up the narrow steps and crossed to a far corner of a hot, musty attic. And there, on a sloping wall, under the rafters, the woman saw it. Probably a stencil, faded now, but used to identify flour sacks in the gristmill they operated during the Civil War. The wall bore other initials haphazardly carved in the gray wood, initials she would recognize. With a lump in her throat, she studied the aged inscriptions, reminders of the human history of this house, of children that had been conceived here, had played and laughed and fought, and grown into adulthood in its rooms. He lived his life here during the agonizing war years, had loved and worked and died here. It was only a house, wasn't it? An old brick farmhouse with a barn and several acres of farmland. What was this powerful need she felt to see tangible proof of her beginnings, an anchor with her past? Was it the basic need of all humanity to feel a kinship with the past, to know that the people who came before them placed an indelible stamp on their genes, making them the person they were? the Reverend Michael Schlater officially organized Christ Church on May 4th of 1747. A log church was built before the year 1755 with no plastering between the logs and with mere log stools without backs as chairs. According to the same authority, there were no stoves in the church, consequently no fire, so that the worshippers sat on their uncomfortable stools with overcoats buttoned up to the chins and thick homespun shawls wrapped closely around their necks, enduring heroically the severe cold. A growing congregation necessitated an addition some years later, which was built somewhat in the form of a cross. In 1798, a brick structure replaced the original. In 1877, this building was altered and enlarged. A second story was added for worship by raising the roof 4 feet, removing the side galleries, and adding a vestibule with 2 stairways leading to the church auditorium. In 1896, the church auditorium was renovated. The floor was raised, new pews, pulpit, and chancel installed, a large memorial window placed in the front, a large chandelier suspended from the ceiling, a pipe organ installed, and a back stairway added. This completed the Old Christ Church as it was known at the time of its last worship service, which was held Palm Sunday morning, April 7, 1963. On Saturday, April 13th, the first wedding was held in the new church. Douglas E. Long and Thelma L. Shoemaker, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Harold E. Shoemaker. The wedding reception was held in the Fellowship Hall. The following list is believed to contain all the names of the sextons from about 1885 to 1947. They are Emmanuel Garrett, Albert Wildison, E.L. Kellenberger, Daniel Sell, Harry Shealy, Charles Kiefer, Preston Clouser, Roy Sterner, William Weaver, Claude Shoemaker, and our 200th anniversary year sexton, David Messinger.
Shortly before 10 a.m., on June 30, the 18th Pennsylvania Cavalry encountered Confederate vedettes about 3 miles southwest of Hanover at Gittsmill. Shortly afterwards, 25 men from Company G of the 18th Pennsylvania were captured by the 13th Virginia from John R. Chambliss's brigade. Also that morning, a series of minor engagements occurred near Littlestown and elsewhere along Stuart's Path. Southwest of Hanover at Pennville, the 2nd North Carolina Cavalry struck the 18th Pennsylvania's main column and split it in two. Union survivors retired in disorder through the streets of Hanover just as Stuart's horse artillery arrived, unlimbered, and opened fire. As the Confederates occupied the town, General Farnsworth wheeled the 5th New York Cavalry into position near the town commons and attacked the rebel flank in the streets, forcing the tie heels to abandon their brief hold on the town. The commander of the 2nd North Carolina, William Henry Fitzhugh, was captured after his dying horse pitched him into a nearby tanning vat. A Union soldier pulled Ping out and took him prisoner. As more of Chambliss's men and General Stuart arrived on the scene, they were met by additional Federals near the Carl Forney farm. Nearly surrounded in the confused fighting, Stuart and a staff officer made their escape cross-country through the hedges bordering the country lane. Hearing the sound of distant gunfire, Jude's son Kilpatrick raced southward towards Hanover, with his horse dying in the town square from the severe ride. The young general began to deploy his men in and around Hanover, barricading streets with anything that might provide cover. Shortly before noon, fighting at the Forney farm ceased as the rebels broke off contact. Kilpatrick positioned Custer's newly arrived brigade on the farm and awaited developments. When Fitzhugh-Lee's Virginia brigade arrived, Stuart moved his and Chambliss's men into a new position on a ridge extending from the Keller farm southwest of Hanover to Mount Olivet Cemetery southeast of town. Kilpatrick repositioned the brigades of the newly promoted duo of Custer and Farnsworth to form a better defensive perimeter and then brought up his guns. At 2 p.m., Wade Hampton brought his brigade and Breathed's battery into position near the Mount Olivet Cemetery on the extreme right of Stuart's line. An artillery duel ensued for the better part of 2 hours. Fragments blasted holes in several houses and narrowly missed killing Mrs. Henry Weiner Brenner and her daughter, who had just left their balcony when a projectile came hurtling through the upstairs. Custer's dismounted 6th Michigan moved forward to within 300 yards of Chambliss and the 2 guns supporting his line. Flanked and losing 15 men as prisoners, the Wolverines tried again and succeeded in securing the Littlestone-Frederick Road, opening a line of communication with the Union 12 Corps. Stuart and Kilpatrick made no further aggressive moves, and both sides initiated a series of skirmishes and minor probing actions. Losses at Hanover were relatively light in terms of casualties, but the cost in time in delaying Stuart from linking with Lee proved to be even more costly.
Late in the afternoon of November 18th, they hurried toward the Hanover depot, where it was rumored President Lincoln's train might stop en route to Gettysburg for the dedication of the National Cemetery. About 5 o'clock in the evening it chugged into sight and to everyone's delight came down a switch and halted at the station. Just then, Pastor Almond of St. Matthew's Lutheran Church stepped out of the crowd and approached the train. "Father Abraham, your children want to hear you," he shouted in a deep, resounding voice. Abraham Lincoln removed his high silk hat and bent his 6-foot, 4-inch frame to step through the narrow doorway. He stood on the platform and surveyed the people, then reached down to grasp the hands of several men lucky enough to be close. "Well, you have seen me, and according to general experience, you have seen less than you expected to see. I trust when the enemy was here, the citizens of Hanover were loyal to our country and the Stars and Stripes. Hanover supports the Union," a voice cried out, and everyone cheered. Lincoln was about to say more when the whistle screamed, the brakes loosened, and the train began to rattle out of the station.